Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Report, the archived editions. I'm Dave Rush in Niagara Falls, along with my friend John Poulter in Toronto. John, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, Dave. Always fun to talk on the sports archives with you.
It is, and today we're going to feature Tony Fernandez, fine Major League Baseball player, and John's going to cover the career and the highlights for Tony Fernandez. So, John, let's talk about this MLB great.
Well, we all know him as Tony Fernandez, but he was actually born Octavio Antonio Fernandez Castro in June of 1962 in San Pedro de Macorís, Dominican Republic. The town does have a nickname in Spanish. I won't attempt to pronounce it because my Spanish is non-existent, but the English translation is the Cradle of Shortstops. And the reason they call it the Cradle of Shortstops is because there are many Major League Baseball shortstops that were born and raised there. In terms of Tony Fernandez's career highlights, played for 7 Major League Baseball teams between 1983 and 2001, World Series winner with the Blue Jays in 93, 5-time All-Star, won 4 consecutive Gold Gloves for fielding excellence between 1986 and 1989, batted over 300 4 times in his career, ending his career with a .288 batting average. He led Major League Baseball in triples with 17 in 1990. He collected 30 doubles 6 times and 20 stolen bases 7 times. He led the American League shortstops in assists 3 times and in putouts and fielding average twice each. With 1,583 hits as a Blue Jay, he is the team career leader. He's also the Blue Jays career leader in games played with 1,450 and triples with 72. He hit for the cycle as a New York Yankee in 1995, and I point that out only because in the history of Major League Baseball, it's only happened 330 times. And there has been approximately 20 to 25,000 players have played Major League Baseball in the history of the game, so that in itself is an achievement. He was inducted into the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame in 2016, and he's been a member of the Toronto Blue Jays Level of Excellence since 2001.
Okay, well, some impressive career stats there and career highlights. The level of excellence is what, John? Toronto Blue Jays level of excellence.
It's very similar to something we see in many sports situations. I guess the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor is probably the one that most people would identify with.
I don't know about that. What about at Lambeau Field? All those big stars in there.
Exactly the same thing.
I'm partial.
But in Toronto, they recognize great players and great contributors to the game. In terms of players, George Bell, Joe Carter, Roberto Alomar, Roy Halladay, executives, Pat Gillick, Cito Gaston, the longtime manager, Paul Beeston, the president, and very well respected and well-known broadcaster Tom Cheek is also honored for calling 4,301 consecutive ball games from the inception of the Blue Jays. So it's a very prestigious place to be as a Blue Jay. The Blue Jays have an unwritten policy of not retiring a jersey number until a player is in the Baseball Hall of Fame, which means that only Roberto Alomar's 12 and Roy Halladay's 32 are actually retired. So the Blue Jays have the level of excellence to recognize other great contributors to the game.
That's a good idea and a good standard for retiring a number, because you just can't do that. You'd start running out of numbers if your franchise is around long enough. So that's smart. So let's look at his life and then playing career.
Well, as I mentioned, he was born in the Dominican Republic. Unfortunately, was born in poverty. He was first scouted by a gentleman by the name of Epi Guerrero, and Guerrero is a well-known and well-respected scout who's worked for a number of teams, but primarily for the Toronto Blue Jays in the Pat Gillick era. And Guerrero sought him out, thought he was a good prospect, signed him as a Blue Jay as an undrafted free agent in 1979. So Guerrero and the Blue Jays were one of the first major league organizations to actively search Latin America, specifically the Dominican Republic. They set up an academy there, and now just about every team has an academy in that part of the world. And that's how they're sourcing a lot of their players, and that's why we see so many Latin American players in Major League Baseball today. In terms of his playing career, he worked his way up through the Blue Jays minor league system. He reached the majors for the first time as a September call-up in 1983. He split the 1984 season between the Blue Jays and their AAA affiliate in Syracuse, New York. And in 1985, he became the Blue Jays' regular shortstop, and that was a job that he held through 1990. In 1990, he was traded to the San Diego Padres. But before he was traded to the Padres in 1986, he had 213 hits, which at that time was a major league hit record for shortstops, a hit record in a single season, of course. It has since been broken a couple of times. After the 1990 season, he, along with Fred McGriff, was traded to the San Diego Padres for Joe Carter and Roberto Alomar, a true blockbuster trade in those days. And it was a baseball trade. It wasn't a money trade like we often see today, or a contract trade like we often see today. This was a true baseball trade. I've got a couple of guys that can help you. You've got a couple of guys that can help me. And at the end of the day, both teams are better. So it was a trade that worked out exceptionally well for the Blue Jays, because it was the cornerstone of the team's postseason success in the early 1990s, including 2 World Series titles in 92 and 93. He was on the move again in October 1992 when he was traded to the New York Mets. And again in June in 1993, he was traded, this time back to the Blue Jays in a trade. And he was a key part of that second Blue Jays World Series win in 1993. And during that World Series, he batted .333 and had 9 RBIs. So that's a significant contribution in what was a 6-game series. After the 93 season, he became a free agent, signed with the Cincinnati Reds. That was followed by brief stints with the Yankees in 95, 96, the Indians in 97, the Blue Jays again in 97, 98, a short spell with the Brewers in 99 before a final stint with the Blue Jays that ended in 2001.
So he went back to the Blue Jays. He played for the Blue Jays in 4 different stints, right? And was able to win a World Series with them, which is really nice. But 4 times with back to one team, that not only says that he was a good player, but that he was a good guy to have around the organization.
Very much so, and I can comment on that a little later when I get to another stage of his career. But Fernandez was also an individual who loved the city of Toronto. He embraced the city when he first came here as a young man, settled in, was very active in the community, had a business here. So Toronto essentially was a home for him up until the end of his playing career.
Excellent.
So, we talked about his brief spell with the Yankees, and a little bit of irony in that brief spell with the Yankees was that he suffered an elbow injury very early in the 1996 season, and that resulted in the Yankees calling up a young shortstop by the name of Derek Jeter.
Who?
And Derek Jeter, and he went on to play a little bit in the major leagues and made a name for himself. So just a little bit of trivia for you today. Fernandez retired after the 2001 season, so essentially he had a 17-year big league career, played in 2,158 games, 8,793 plate appearances, 2,276 base hits, 246 stolen bases, and in 43 postseason games, he batted .327. So a pretty good career statistically. But it was his fielding that was so outstanding. He played 1,573 games as a shortstop, starting 1,528 of those games, and had a .980 fielding percentage. Roughly, he gets to 98 out of 100 balls he approaches. Yeah. That's excellence, whichever way you want to look at it. And in his later years, he filled in as a second baseman and as a third baseman, again, fielding very well, but we'll always know him as a shortstop. And to talk about his fielding ability, he was once described by a writer by the name of Ivan Maisel in a Sports Illustrated article as having, quote, the range of a Texas cattleman. That's a lot of range.
That's a lot of room.
Yeah. Partner. So following a very successful playing career, he retired. He was never really one to seek the limelight, and he mostly withdrew from public life after his playing days were over. He was always one of my favorites. I had the opportunity of meeting him once in 1998. I saw him in a downtown office building where I happened to be working at the time. I knew that he co-owned a small coffee shop in the West End of Toronto with a former co-worker of mine, and that coffee shop was very aptly named the Gold Glove Cafe. So I approached him, I introduced myself, told him of our mutual connection, and I spoke to him for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, primarily about
Nice.
baseball. It was the end of the season, how the Blue Jays were playing. A very, very humble man. He was almost embarrassed to talk about his success on the field.
Well, that's kind of cool when you get to, actually meet somebody like that. And it
Yeah.
makes a difference now. You kind of, I mean, even if it's not a long time that you talk to them, you've got a personal connection that, most people don't.
Exactly. And I've had that opportunity with several athletes, both in their active days and in their retired days. Always very short conversations, but I've always left with a good impression, which was important. It satisfied my mind that I was right in following that player as an individual.
You know what I've noticed is that you get more time from them after they retire. The conversations get a little longer after they're not in the game because they're
Well,
not
it's
in demand as much, right?
exactly. It's probably the stress as well. Their mind operates the same way as an average individual's operates, rather than somebody that's under the microscope all the time. So
Right.
that's fully understandable. Unfortunately, after he retired, he suffered from some health issues, and in 2017, he announced that he had been diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. And in February 2020, at the age of 57, he passed away while in a Weston Hospital, Florida hospital, following some complications. He wore jersey number 1, and throughout the 2020 season, the Blue Jays wore a black number 1 on the left sleeve of their uniform tops to remember Tony Fernandez. And when announcing that the team would wear the patch in 2020, team president and CEO Mark Shapiro said, and I quote, "There are few players in the game who can impact a team and a fan base the way Tony did in Toronto. Beyond his impressive career numbers, achievements, and accolades, Tony resonated with baseball fans because of how he played the game and conducted himself as a teammate. To wear a patch in his memory is to honor his exceptional life on behalf of the Blue Jays fans across the country." So, in summary, a great player, a better person who left us far too soon.
He's John Poulter in Toronto. I'm Dave Rush in Niagara Falls. That's the career and the highlights of Tony Fernandez.